Wahoo! It's me, Jay. Hi, welcome back to Audiolog. Today we are doing some ambient sound design for the indie game that I'm doing audio for, Colossus Eternal Blight. I'm gonna walk you through my journey today of how I put ambient sounds into our game to make the environment more immersive to listen to. So without further ado, let's get into picking some sounds to use for this ambient. Oh, I just keep hitting my goddamn microphone. In Colossus, right now we only really have one area that I can do ambient sound design for at the moment, and that is this really large, huge ass forest. Holy shit. And for the forest, of course, we want to have some daytime forest ambience, things like birds and probably wind. Some simple stuff, but enough to give you the impression that there's some critters hanging around here while you're walking around. And then for the nighttime ambience, what I'd like to do is have some crickets, some other insects, some various creatures and critters making sounds of the night in general. Now, something to note about Colossus is that it has been in development for the last like 2 or 3 years, technically more. Because of that, there's already some daytime ambient sounds for the forest that I've put in before. The problem, though, is that they sound like this, and that is a lot of goddamn birds. So today we're going to be replacing some of those with softer bird ambience and just some light wind to make the forest seem a little calmer. The process I'm about to show you is a little bit technical, so I'm going to try my best to keep it as simple as I can. First things first, find a bird sound. That's what I did. I got this sound right here that I really liked a lot. It was really chill and made me happy. Now, the next thing we're gonna do though is I'm gonna clean it up just a little bit. And you're probably thinking, Jay, how are you gonna do that? And what do you mean by clean up? Well, we're gonna use a program called Isotope RX to sort of clean out this file a little bit. You can sort of think of Isotope RX as like Photoshop, but for audio. In our particular case, I'd like to come in here and take out anything that is not in the range of the birds in this file. Now, typically speaking, you don't always have to do this, but I like to because I like to keep my ambiences really clean. I just went into these birds and kind of cleaned the high end and cleaned the low end up a little bit. There are a little bit of, you know, funky mid-wind noise frequencies that are in here. And I also kind of did this extra little method to really help clean up the birds a little bit. You can kind of see me shaping it here with the RX tool. Don't worry too much about that. The TLDR is, it makes it so you're really only hearing pretty much the birds in this file. It's really awesome. Now, because of all the stuff we took out of this ambience, the birds now sound kind of wonky by themselves, but don't worry about that because everything matters in context. So later, when we throw it in with the wind ambience, it's gonna make a lot more sense and feel much more full. So next we gotta do the nighttime ambience. And what better way to do that than get some crickets and insects like we were talking about before. I'll spare you the details, but essentially I went through these files and did the same thing that I did to the daytime ambient files. Just a little bit of cleaning with Isotope RX to really shape the sound and just get the insects out of here. While I was editing and trying to put together these ambient sounds, I was really inspired by the Nintendo 64's Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask Zelda games. They have some ambiences, especially during nighttime, that are really interesting because they're actually relatively empty, but they still sound very present. I was really inspired by the idea of keeping it soft, but also making sure it's there, if that makes literally any sense at all. Making content is really hard. I want to disappear. It's fine. I'm going to drink some Dr. Pepper and it's going to be okay. Okay. Back to it. Now it's time to get into the game engine itself and actually implement our ambiences so we can start to get them working in the game. That would be pretty sick, would it not? So I dropped the files in the Game Maker, did a little bit of code, and then I started up the game. The game starts up with you overlooking the ocean atop a cliff. There's a seaside ambience that I created some time ago that plays during this section. And once you finish some dialogue and then walk off to the left side a little bit, the seaside ambience fades out and then the forest ambience that we've created fades in. Or at least it would do that if it wasn't fucking broken. Okay, so here's the major issue with this whole excursion that I was on. I would play the ambience and I would fade it up to full volume, but for some reason you just could not hear it. And at first I wasn't even sure if it was actually playing in the first place.
But regardless, even if it is playing, you should just fade it in. So why is it not fading in? What is happening? It's not like playing at all.
I did a little bit of troubleshooting, as you can see by this visual right here, to check the code and make sure that it was in fact doing the thing it was supposed to be doing. And you can see down here with the output log that it is in fact working. And I am in fact playing the sound effect and raising the gain up. But for some fucking reason, I couldn't hear it. It took a really long time. And when I say a long time, I mean a couple hours, which doesn't sound like a long time, but I was agonizing over this forever because I could not figure it out.
It's not working. It is working. So why can't I hear it? I want to disappear. This is so dumb. Nothing's happening. Nothing I do is working. I don't.
But eventually I did figure it out. I'm gonna let future me explain this process to you.
In GameMaker, we have two functions that deal with audio the most often. We've got audio play sound and we have audio sound gain. Audio play sound can take a couple pieces of information. We can give it the sound we would like it to play. That's a Y, LOL. We can give it the priority that sound should play at in the hierarchy of sound effects. That's not really important for this example, but it is a thing you could do. We can tell it whether or not to loop. In this case, it would be a yes. And we can even pass in extra information like the gain or volume that it should play at. That is an A, I promise. Audio sound gain is kind of similar, but it's meant for manipulating the volume of a sound over time. In this function, we can pass in similar information like the sound effect to manipulate, just like this one up here. We can pass in the level we'd like it to change to, or the gain, same thing for this example. And then we can specify a time that it takes to get to that level. Let's pretend for a second that this is our GameMaker sound effect asset. He's a happy little guy. Let's say for this example, we put him at 0.5, so he's at half his original volume. So the way audio play sound works is if you specify the gain, it is actually a multiplier of the original sound asset volume that you set in GameMaker. So what that means is, let's say it's 0.5. If we put this at 0, because we're thinking, oh, I'd like the gain to be at 0 so I can fade it up like I'm trying to do in this whole example we're talking about. It's actually becoming a multiplier. So you get 0.5 times 0, which is 0. And then the other problem with this, why this wasn't working, is because then after that, if we use audio sound gain to raise the gain to 1 or 100%, it's a percentage, this value, the gain, then we end up trying to raise 0 to 100% of 0, which is still 0. So the TLDR for this whole problem is, if you're gonna specify a gain and want to control it in GameMaker, do not use this. Use this. Have fun with that information.
So I eventually got the day fade in work. Shut up! So I eventually got the daytime fade in ambience working properly, which is fantastic. And here's what it sounds like, finally, now that I have it working. Now remember how we were doing all that work to the bird ambience earlier? Notice how, along with the wind ambience, it now feels like a full ambience. How many times can I see the word ambience in a sentence? Ambience, 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 ambience! You can probably hopefully tell that along with the wind ambience, it sounds pretty full and rounded off. Yay, for context. That makes me happy. The great thing about this is it allows our sound effects in the back to be calm and soft, but still present while not taking up a bunch of unnecessary space for, other things like sound effects that are playing all the time, or music, or anything of that nature. It's all a really fun balancing act in the world of audio. It's my favorite thing on the planet. I don't know if you could tell that that was sarcasm. It's actually a lie. I really do enjoy balancing things in a nice way. It's very fun. It's very exciting. It's cool when things finally come together and work properly. So the next part of this is actually really simple. We haven't put the night ambience in yet, as I'm sure you're aware, so we gotta go do that, but then we also have to tell the game to play the daytime ambience during the day and play the nighttime ambience during the night. Our lead developer already has a system in place for day and night, so thankfully, this was pretty easy to do. Pretty much the way the system works in our game is I'm playing all the sounds at the same time, and then fading the day in during the day, and then fading the night in during the night, and then fading their opposite ambiences, out. I may also have put in some code that stops the ambience, so we're not unnecessarily playing audio files for a long time, but I cannot remember if I did that, so if I did, I'll put it on the screen right here and congratulate myself. Good job, Jay, you're incredible. But if I didn't, then fucking goddamn it, Jay, why haven't you done that yet? And so after a whole lot of, I got all the ambiences in, and all the code in, and all the things done, and all the systems in place, and now we have a day ambience. And a nighttime ambience. I love this shit a lot, honestly. If I have footage of it here, I'll play the game with no ambience. And then with ambience. Now this system, pretty awesome. I'm really excited about it. I'm really happy that I was able to put something like this together. But there's more, because I wanted to make the ambience even more complex and interesting to listen to over longer periods of time. However, there's not enough time for that in today's video, so the next time I put together an audio log covering Colossus Eternal Blight, we will be talking about part 2 of the ambience system. Oh, is that it? Oh, I don't think you can see that. Those are all my bullet points, so I think we're done with the video.